All right. Um, during that time there, I guess that we lived at Rogers. I don't know what really exciting happened. I mean, there was a lot of partying. I mean, there was always beer in the refrigerator. There was always brothers over at the house. There was always bikes in front of the house. There, um, you know, ours was like the party house. That's just the way that it was. My dad was teaching me how to wrench on cars and just so there was always like a car being worked on. There were bikes at the house, bikers over there, people partying, at all hours of the night. That's what our house was, and that was all cool and it was fun. I don't know. It was cool and it was fun. What can I say? The thing was, though, from a standpoint of, I don't know. You know what? It is what it is, I suppose. Um, I think that's probably when my alcoholic drinking started. Probably, though, not when I was 15 or 16. Probably when I was around 17 or so. Um, I can remember my first bad hangover was New Year's Eve of 1980, turning into 1981, uh, doing tequila slammers. Oh my God. Oh, it almost gives me a headache just thinking about it. Me and this friend, Dave Dakota, we went to go get some pot. When we got back, there people are doing tequila slammers with Jose Cuervo. And they're like, we got 16 on you. You guys, if you want to play, you got to do 16 of them. Done. So, anyway, and I was a little guy too. So you gotta understand, when I was younger, I said I used to get in fights in school a lot and whatnot. I was like as big as the other kids, but nothing. I wasn't like a big kid. But then it was really about seventh grade, about the time that I went to Devereaux, and I was like away from my friends for that year. When I went back in eighth grade, they had all gotten bigger, started like puberty, I guess, or whatever, and I really didn't. And I stayed small. And actually, you could look at my, and I just found my yearbooks too, and looked at this picture. I was on the freshman football team, and I was like the littlest kid on the team. Today, I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, so whatever. But at this time, when I was like, I didn't start to really grow till I was about 18 years old. So during this time, I was like a little guy. My voice really hadn't changed. I didn't have to shave. I'm 16 and a half, 17 years old, and I didn't have to shave. Uh, uh, but nobody ever gave me shit about it because I was Buddy Rhodes' son, and I was, and besides that, I was pretty cool. I mean, I tried not to be too much of a punk. But of course I was 16, 17, so there were times where I was, but I was all right. And I always had anger issues. I mean, I got in fights all the time. I got scars all over my body. I'll tell you one, me and my partner, one of the best friends I ever had in my life, Steve Vians. Steve, if you see this video, please contact me, man. I would love to know how you're doing. I'd love to know how you're doing. I bet you're doing just great. I bet you're on top of the world. Anyway, me and Steve, we used to we played this video game called Defender, I believe it was. And my dad was at his girlfriend's house, Jane. Jane, well, anyway, her house was right by the bowling alley. So Steve and I went down to the bowling alley and we're playing Defender. And, well, what the deal was is these guys, these Samoans, there's a lot of Samoans in California, Southern California there. These Samoan guys had like racked up a bunch of credits on the machine, and they were selling them like 5 credits for a buck or whatever. So we bought some credits so Steve and I could play. So we're playing partners, and Steve gets upset, and he like bumps the machine, and one of the guys says, "Hey man, don't be hitting my machine," and Steve's like, he's like, "It's not your machine, man." And he said, "I didn't hurt it. I didn't do anything. Don't worry about it." And Steve had taken karate lessons from the time he was real little, and like he was from the time he was 5, and now he's like 16. And Steve was, I believe, he was a brown belt or a black belt. He was a bad boy, and but he didn't act it. He wasn't like, he was a really cool guy. He was a great guy. He was my best friend. And Wayne Murphy, God, whatever happened to you, Wayne? I've tried to look you up. Anyway, and I've tried to look you up too, Steve. However, anyway. So Steve goes into the bathroom, and this guy walks in behind Steve that was with these other guys. But this guy, he was like a white guy. He was older, though. He was probably like 20, 21 years old, maybe even 25. He was wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and they all cowboyed out. And but he was talking to these guys. So when Steve walks into the bathroom, this guy walks in right behind him. And I thought, that ain't cool. So I walked in too. And this guy's giving Steve a hard time. So I walk over and I walk to the side, and Steve just, he hits the guy a couple times, and Steve was in the stall, and the guy was at the door of the stall, and Steve just hits the guy a couple of times and knocks him back through the doorway there, and he's like, "Just get the hell out of here, man," because there's a bunch of these guys. So Steve and I walk out of the bathroom. We walk past that where the video games were there, and the way the bowling alley was, like the video games were here, and then there was like a front exit over here, and if you kept walking, there was like a side exit. Well, as we walk by, the guy comes out of the bathroom, and he says something, and they're like, we had already walked past where the video games were, but we weren't to where the exit was yet, or the main entrance.